Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So, yesterday I saw this movie on Amazon entitled One Night in Miami. And basically, it's about a night in Miami where you have these black people together, famous black people. You have Malcolm X, you have Sam Cooke, you have Jim Brown, and you also have Muhammad Ali. And so they're in this hotel room, and they have all these interactions where they talk about a wide range of different things. And at one point in this film, there's a debate between Malcolm X and Sam Cooke. And that's what I'm going to focus on for this video. But I also want to do a quick review of this film. I thought it was very entertaining, very engaging, and it raised a lot of very important questions about race and about the role of a black man in society, about the role of black celebrities in society. And, I thought it was very powerful. I'm glad that, this film was put out. Shout out to Regina King. She did a great job with this particular film. This is her first time directing a film, and I hope that this is going to pave the way for her to have more opportunities to tell our stories. So before I get into this debate between Sam Cooke and Malcolm X in the film, I want to talk about like some of the things that I thought about the film. First of all, I thought the actor who played Malcolm X did a great job. He's one of the best actors who have played the role of Malcolm X. And one thing that was extraordinary about this film is that even though like most of the actors in the film are not A-list celebrities, they still did a great job pulling off this film. And because of the marketing, a lot of people are watching the film despite the fact that it doesn't have big name actors in it. And one thing that Regina King pointed out in an article that I read, they talked about like why they didn't have big name actors in the film. And they said that none of them, none of the big name actors wanted to audition for the film. So for that reason, they casted, these new actors, relatively new actors to the film. And I think that it worked out perfectly. You had a great cast, great acting. So I was really impressed with it. One thing that I was concerned about was how they were trying to depict the Nation of Islam in a negative light. And we know that this comes up anytime you have a discussion about Malcolm X, and that's fair enough. I understand that and everything. And I think that that's justified to raise questions about the Nation of Islam's role in the assassination of Brother Malcolm X. But the thing that I was really concerned about is how they tried to basically make Farrakhan like a point of interest or a subject in the particular film. They mentioned Louis X, which, is Farrakhan. They mentioned him, and they basically tried to tarnish his name and tarnish the nation at the same time. And I just think that that's problematic, for them to use Malcolm X's legacy to attack somebody that's actually fighting on behalf of black people today, somebody that's still living and still involved in changing people's lives, fundamentally helping, people recover from drugs or to turn over a new leaf, to develop a better life, to become model citizens, to be transformed from criminals or, drug dealers and gangsters into productive, positive, strong black men. That's the work that the nation has done over the years, for decades now. And it's just a shame that, they would try to use this film to basically, tarnish Farrakhan or, besmirch Farrakhan's name and all that kind of stuff. I can understand like a general criticism of the nation and of the leadership at that time, but to make it solely, focus it solely into a high degree on, Louis Farrakhan, I think that that's problematic. So that's one thing that I wanted to point out. So, other than the great acting, the great points that were raised in the film, I want to focus on this issue of the debate between Sam Cooke and Malcolm X. And basically, Malcolm X was telling Sam Cooke that he has the potential to reach millions of people. Like his voice is more powerful and could have more impact than the voice of Malcolm X. than the voice of, even a Muhammad Ali or a Jim Brown. Because when you sing songs and put out records, those are put out, to the whole, not only to the people in America, but to the whole world. People buy those songs. And a lot of times those songs live on for generations. So he was talking about that. He was talking about how, you know, Sam Cooke has the potential to enlighten people, to inspire people, to basically get people involved in the struggle for black people, to raise their consciousness. And he criticized Sam Cooke for putting out these real superficial, shallow songs that were only about love and all that kind of stuff and relationships when he could be impacting the world with a more powerful message. And so Sam Cooke, responded in several ways. He was talking about how he doesn't want a piece of the pie, he wants the recipe so that he can make his own pie. And that's a valid point. And he also went on to talk about, he provided an example of how what he's doing, by putting out these songs that are selling, that are doing well, he's able to create his own black business that is helping black people. And he also cited the example of one of his artists uh, allowing, a group, the Rolling Stones, to sing his song and all that kind of stuff, to do a cover of his song. And then he talked about how because of that, like, that particular artist may have lost sales of their own song, with them singing it, but the Rolling Stones were able to sell all these millions of copies of that particular song, and because of that, that songwriter received a lot of royalties, and Sam Cooke's label received royalties and money, which could be used to help the black community and stuff like that. So that was his point. He was basically saying that through the music, he's able to build, you know, something for black people. He's able to help black people by providing them with jobs and opportunities and things of that nature. So I think that both of them had valid points and stuff like that. But I do agree with Malcolm X. I think that artists should use their voice to make an impact, to have something to say about what's happening in this world. I mean, when we look at what's going on right now, in America, where you have police brutality, every other day there's another hashtag, every other day there's another black person, a black man or a black woman killed by police. And too often these police are not even charged, and when they are charged, they walk. They get away with literally murdering our people time and time again. And it's a shame that not enough artists really speak on this issue. And I believe that artists have a social responsibility to do so. Too often, for instance, if you look at the rap artists, most of the time they're talking about stupid, frivolous, superficial type of things, and even self-destructive things, like selling drugs, like using drugs, like engaging in violence. A lot of the songs glorify shooting and killing black people. They glorify that stuff. They glorify being a dope fiend. I remember back in the day, people would make fun of crackheads and stuff like that, and people that were on heroin and so-called junkies and stuff. People made fun of them. They made fun of so-called dope fiends. But today you got songs that celebrate being a dope fiend. You got many of these young artists who are strung out on opiates and, all kinds of stuff. Things that are, before, all people would rap about is like smoking weed, or they would just rap about smoking weed or drinking alcohol. But today they rap about taking all kinds of drugs, all kinds of opiates and stuff like that, that are basically similar to heroin. So you got these people singing about being junkies and stuff like that, singing about drinking lean and stuff like that, consuming drugs that literally take lives, where people can die from it, overdosing on these drugs and stuff. That's what they sing about. Instead of using their voice to impact the community and to inspire people or to, to further the movement, they are singing about the destruction of their community. And that's by design. Many of these labels pick these kind of artists. They pick these coons, man, basically, to be minstrels and to make black people look like criminals and you know prostitutes and pimps and all that kind of stuff. That's the image that they promote for you. So agree. I agree that these artists should be using their voice to make a difference. And a lot of them are, some of them have changed, their messaging, and they have taken on more positive, socially conscious type of songs. You have people like T.I., you have people like Killer Mike, and others. And then you also have artists who have been promoting conscious music for the longest time, but they represent a minority. And it's just time for these artists to enlighten themselves and to use their voice for power instead of using their voice to perpetuate the conditions that we live under. Artists back in the day understood this, and some artists today understand this. For instance, you had James Brown. Like, he sung about all kinds of things. Like, he had songs about relationships, about sex, and all that kind of stuff. But he also had "I'm Black and I'm Proud." You got Marvin Gaye, who had, was a crooner. He basically sung all these love songs and all that kind of stuff. But even he put out an album, What's Going On, where he's talking about all these issues in the black community, talking about poverty, talking about police brutality, talking about war, talking about the environment, talking about all kinds of things that are very important and still relevant today. And you even had groups like Sly and the Family Stone singing about singing about standing up for what's right. And other groups singing about power to the people and stuff. One thing that Nina Simone said something to the effect that an artist should reflect their times. And, what kind of message does it send if you're living in a time such as this and your whole resume is not even addressing any of these very important issues going on in our society? So, yeah, I think that the brother Malcolm X had a point in the film. This is probably a fictional conversation, I'm sure, but it draws out very important, relevant points. And I understand the point that Sam Cooke was making about using, the opportunity to create more opportunities for black people. And the thing that's so funny about this whole debate is that I think that Malcolm X won that debate because even Sam Cooke, like at least in the film, decided to come out with the song about change. Change is going to come. He brings out that song like shortly after these conversations with Malcolm in the film. And that's one of those impactful songs that people sing today. And sadly, all these years later, that song is still relevant. And one of the things that Malcolm X brought up in this debate is he talked about how, like, Bob Dylan had music that was more relevant to the plight of black people than Sam Cooke did, before he put out the song Change Is Gonna Come. Before he put that song out, Bob Dylan had these songs that dealt with socially conscious subject matter, that dealt with oppressed people and all that kind of stuff. Powerful type of songs. And he was like, if Bob Dylan can put out this song and sell all these records with this conscious music, then surely you can do the same. And all we have to do is look at examples like Public Enemy. We know that Public Enemy was very successful. They sold millions of records and stuff like that, and their message was a powerful message. And it's just unfortunate that we live in a different time. Like, I remember back in the day, Public Enemy was just one of several groups that was about consciousness. You had a whole movement towards consciousness at the time. People got rid of the gold chains and replaced them with African medallions. They had shirts talking about by any means necessary on. Shirts saying that it's a black thing, you wouldn't understand. There was a consciousness that was a part of our community. And it was groups like Public Enemy that inspired activism. They inspired people to want to learn about Farrakhan. They inspired people to want to learn about Assata Shakur and Malcolm X and all these other great figures in black history. So yeah, those are my thoughts. Tell me what you think about this debate between Sam Cooke and Malcolm X in the film. And what did you think about the film, period? So please rate, comment, subscribe, like the video, share the video, hit that notification bell so that you'll know when I post new content on here. Peace and blessings. Have a great evening.